Well, we had a little double tracking there just for a minute because I had the YouTube page open. What's happening, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix, and you are you, and I hope you're being the best you that you could possibly be, which is the most divine expression of who you are and can be. And we live in interesting times, don't we? There's a lot going on. Really looking forward to 15 minutes of flame today because I was a part of this. Well, I wasn't, nobody invited me to actually speak or anything. I just went to go listen, and it was a Twitter space with E. Michael Jones. And it was a really interesting follow up to his appearance with Jason Whitlock on Fearless. And I've had E. Michael Jones on my show a couple times. I really respect the hell out of his work and him. The guy's fearless. And I'm going to try and get him back on the show. But we are really just in this major fulcrum in everything. You know, when Terrence McKenna talks about hitting the event horizon, right, and then all this novelty happens at once, it feels like we're getting there. You know, it feels like we're getting there because we're having this major conflagration happen in the Middle East, which is very significant, very, very significant. And again, I'm going to talk more about that on 15th, but we have that. There's talk of aliens, right? Like there's been more alien and extraterrestrial talk in the mainstream that I've ever encountered in all the years that I've been here. You've got Tucker Carlson talking about extraterrestrials on a pretty consistent basis. You know, there are people that are talking about the Anunnaki, the Nephilim, the return of the fallen gods, right? Like that's all part of the public vocabulary right now. You have this crazy, you know, role-playing group, the American Patriot Front, or whatever the fuck they are, show up, you know, and sticking out like a sore thumb in New York City, pretending, you know, to be this radical terrorist group. You've got Elon Musk going to the concentration camps. Like the whole thing is getting really weird, really, really weird. And then there's a lot of just, you know, strange murmurings and revelations, you know, coming in from all corners of our so-called society, right? It's a fascinating time to be alive. And I'm watching people take advantage of these media tools in really remarkable ways, whether they're TikTok videos. I saw a TikTok video 2 days ago, and it was this guy maybe around my age, and he was, I guess they have these floating head TikToks, and this guy was able to basically take maybe 4 minutes and break down the entire, well, not the entire, but a good chunk of the esoteric layout of Washington, D.C., and where everything is positioned and where Lincoln is positioned and his back against the temple. I'm like, you know, this is just fucking amazing, right? It's like there's this explosion of information and hypershare to go along with everything else that is all happening simultaneously. So Pluto and Aquarius will not disappoint. I can guarantee you that right now. It will not disappoint. And you know, we'll see all of it. We'll see the high strange. We'll see, you know, crazy sinks. It's all going to be out there, right? It'll almost be too much for a while. So I'm going to talk more about like some of the timeline stuff on 15 minutes, which will take place at 9/11. And I've been putting the link for here. Let me do this real quick here. I'm I'm going to put the link to the channel for 15 minutes inside of chat today, so that you guys can just go there, use this link, and let's see. Boom. Oh, hold on. Here we go. Let's see. No, I'm just going to put the link on Twitter. All right, let's get into the weather. Let's do this. Enough dilly, enough dally. Let's get into the weather. All right, so here we go. Man, I get everything right. Look at that. I love it when I get it right. 1:24:24, 8 a.m. San Antonio, Texas. So here we go. People got back to me yesterday when I was talking about Mars, and it's always interesting to get feedback when people do take advantage of some of the things I'm saying and it works out for them. Kudos for you. I'm glad that what I'm dishing out here is working for you on a timely basis. Apparently, I said something yesterday about don't hesitate, just do it. And this video from Carrie Lake came out, and it was this guy who was trying to bribe her, and supposedly she said the exact same thing in the video. She said, "Don't hesitate, just do it." I hadn't seen the video, by the way, so it was something that was in the air, right? That energy, it's still here, and Mercury's starting to creep up on Mars. And people talk about this whole Kazemi, where Mars cancels out Mercury, Mercury cancels out Mars. I tend to look at it differently. This is just me personally as an astrologer. Doesn't mean they're right, wrong, or doesn't mean that I'm right. It's just my interpretation of the aspect. And my interpretation of the aspect is how the energies combine. And I think in some ways, and I'm not dissing people who are going to promote the idea of Kazemi or Kazmi, whatever you want to call it. I've heard it pronounced both ways. But it's almost easier to hit a default by saying that these two things cancel each other out. So you really don't have to talk about them to a certain degree. I think that the more interesting and difficult thing to do is to talk about them and to try to extrapolate meaning from when these two celestial orbs are essentially on top of one another, right? So when we look at Mercury and Mars, and tomorrow Mercury will be conjunct Mars, even tighter, and really in that one-on-one position, whatever sign it's in, our thoughts, our actions are our actions an outgrowth of our thoughts. And when you bring the two together, the ability to think and act is swift. It is swift, right? There's this synchrony. I think it's a synchrony. When you get Mercury ahead of Mars just a little bit, you're thinking just a little bit more, right? When you get Mercury behind Mars, you're acting just a little bit more, and then you're processing your action. When they're right on top of each other, and especially in Capricorn, but I would say mostly in almost any other sign, your ability to instinctually act is heightened. Think of the awareness of a hunter in a kind of hunter-gatherer culture, that you become aware of everything around you, right? Like in that moment of the hunt, everything becomes crystal clear, and your actions and your thoughts have to be one and the same. Another approach this would be, if you want a more refined approach, it would be Zen, right? Like, this whole idea when, you combine the brush and the ink and the paper, and the character comes out like a crack of lightning, right? To me, that's Mercury Mars. There's no hesitation between either. Now, for some people, that can be problematic. If you have not, if you don't have any information, or you don't have a history of being able to do that, then when we move into a conjunction like this, it becomes it can be challenging, because all of a sudden you could wind up doing things that might be completely out of character for you. And some people might even feel out of control. A lot of people like to be in control, and they like to use their mind to be in control. This bypasses all of it. It's very instinctual. And the sign does matter. In Capricorn, it's very efficient. Capricorn doesn't mince words. Capricorn gets right to the point. It gets right to the act. And I prefaced this yesterday, and it's still in the air. It's that square with Chiron. It's the hesitancy, right? Well, I've been hurt before. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? When you're a kid and you put your hand on something hot and it burns, you'll remember that. You won't do it again, right? So when I look at this, to me, it's sort of like crossing this Rubicon. Well, I did this before, and man, I really paid a price for it. I was unpopular. People didn't like me. People said I was selfish. I got a lot of sort of blowback, right? Because that's what happens with Chiron and Aries. And again, we're going to talk about another concept here, which is anger. And this is, we're coming up here. We're coming up in the next 24, 48 hours, where it just feels like this pressure cooker is building, and it's across all these different platforms. There seems to be an unrelenting intensity and pressure that's building. I'll give you an example. So, of course, you guys know that I follow sports, and there's a player by the name of Brock Purdy, whom I've talked about. And yesterday, everybody in the media who is either an ex-jock or somebody who might be a talking head, not everybody, but a lot of them, just went in hard on Brock Purdy. Well, he's not him. He's not him. He's no Josh Allen. He's no Pat Mahomes. And this has been going on for a while now. And you begin to look at, well, where is this coming from? Where it almost feels, and I don't like to use the word, but it almost feels like hate. Like there's this repulsion or this hate that is coming at this young man. And that's what I'm talking about with the pressure cooker building, right? We've got this thing down here in Texas on the border, pressure cooker building. Like, you can't really get away from it in some ways. Every time you turn, like, oh, I'm just really into sports, and I just want to get some relief and check out and not think about the world. And, these guys are ready to stone Brock Purdy, and he hasn't really done anything to deserve it. Well, I can't go there. Oh, let me just go listen to some music. And then all of a sudden you listen to the music and go, holy shit, this is, satanic, right? I mean, that's kind of where we are right now. So this pressure is building exponentially. And, to me, when we get here with Mercury and Mars conjunct and squaring Chiron, and again, today it's kind of, sort of the back end of this moon in Cancer. So we got this T-square. The phrase that comes to mind for me is like a bomb going off. That's what it feels like. It feels like there's a bomb about to go off. And the bomb could be you, or somebody you know, or somebody you don't know but encounter. Right? So it can have all those personal iterations. There's an even bigger meaning of a bomb going off. There's a literal meaning of a bomb going off. So this is a really, really interesting, intense time. And again, when I look at this, and I've talked about this before, America has an anger issue. Has an anger issue. It's not that America is angry. Oh, America is angry. It's that America doesn't know what to do with its anger, or America doesn't know what to do when Americans stuff their anger. They stuff their anger, and it comes out in all these weird ways, right? It comes out being passive aggressive, or it comes out like with mind games, or a person's will, because they've sublimated their anger so much, is diminished, right? And then what happens to them in their life? They wind up being victims of their own suppressed anger. And that's a lot of what's going on right now, right? There's a lot going on. And the moon in Cancer wants to take in everybody's feelings. Well, how does it feel? How would the other person feel if I did this? Well, it's always an interesting perspective to take in. How would they feel? You know what that's called? It's called empathy. Well, let me see. How would they feel if I did that? So there's this really interesting dynamic here, and a lot of testing. And the testing has a lot to do with anger, frustration, rage, and this release valve. And I'm not saying you should sit on it. I feel like, this is a time to act. And even with the opposition, people may not be able to see that you are, in actuality, taking care of their best interests. They may not be able to see that. Because this is all about defending and protecting and nurturing and making things safe. And that's a big motivating factor here. And again, when I see moon in Cancer, I think of the United States. I think of places like the border, where things are very fluid, to say the least. So this next 48-hour period is going to be fascinating. Would be an overused and cliche way to describe it. I'll use the word shocking. I'll use the word explosive. I'll use the word empowering. How about that? That's another outcome here. If you have needed to say something or get something off your chest to another person, this next 48 hours, good time to do it, right? And it's one of those come hell or high water moments. And you could try to take in how they're going to feel, right? But this is one of those 48-hour periods where if you've got a long standing grudge or something that you've buried, you have to cross the Rubicon in order to methodically and efficiently discharge it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. For some people, again, for some people who aren't used to it or can't do it, what do? They come right up to it and they feel like they're going to just boil over. And their anger and their emotion will be out of control, and it will do damage to themselves and others. And this is a big problem for our society. And there are some people who have a handle on it. There are some people that do have a handle on it. They're not going to, they're usually frank and forthright, and they keep things kind of circulating through their system, that they don't let things build up. And that's the way theoretically we should be, to not let things build up. Because what happens when we sublimate anything, anger, frustration, rage, all those things, it takes us out of the moment. We're literally reacting through these things that we have not resolved, and so our actions in the moment aren't true. They're not true. They're kind of an approximation, but it takes a lot to get there. And if we could all kind of be there simultaneously, it would be an amazing thing. We wouldn't be holding on to the worst remnants of our past, and we wouldn't be furtive about the future. We'd be right here, right now, and being able to, interact and have discourse with one another, and we could agree to disagree, and we could plot our path forward from the now, right? So this is a real, and again, with the moon in Cancer, it's like, oh my God, the good old days. You got the good old days, and you've got the high strange future. And we're coming up on this Leo full moon, which is going to be interesting. I think it is I'm not mistaken, the first Leo full moon opposite Pluto in Aquarius in our time, right? Wow. Look out, Hollywood. Look out, Hollywood. The secrets from Hollywood. You think they're starting to come out now. And we're just getting started here. So again, there's a reward, right? Even though Mercury's starting to separate from Jupiter, so is Mars, but they're coming closer to Uranus. So all these things can happen quickly. Before, let me qualify before. So I would say before, we'll go back, say, to the year 2000, which, my God, it just seems like eons ago now. But before the year 2000, sometimes it would take a long time for people to work through certain things and to drop them, resolve them. I'll use the H word, heal them. We're in a different time now. We're in a very different time, and it doesn't take forever. And really, you can see this with the trine with Uranus. Things happen very quickly. So if you need to move and act, if you need to think and act, if you need to act and think all simultaneously, right, you can change your situation rapidly. Uranus is the turbocharger here. And a lot of it, too, can also be connected to your own financial position. I know I've got a series of people coming up here who are looking to make career changes, and they have, well-paying jobs. They're not satisfied. They're in a place where they're on the treadmill. So what do you do with something like that? And I think those things are real, right? I don't think they're being selfish. Well, guess what? You're lucky you have a job. You just better be lucky you have a job. I don't really believe in that. Although there can be some truth to it. There can be some truth to it. I mean, there are a lot of, I would say, late 50, early 60 programmers who are out of work and can't get a job because of their background. That said, sometimes you rip the Band-Aid off. And it's just a matter of that. And you have to have some courage in order to just rip the Band-Aid off and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I have trust and faith in myself and the universe, prime creator, to move in a different direction. You can do that. Sometimes you need to build a bridge. Sometimes you need to rip the Band-Aid off. This is one of those periods where things happen very quickly, very, very quickly. So if you're on the fence, I'd say get off of it. Let's see what else we have here. Pluto squaring Jupiter. And again, Pluto-Jupiter squares are not, any square to Jupiter, I don't think it's terrible. There can be an overreach, overconfidence, blah, 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 blah. right? But to me, the Jupiter squares are they're gambling. They're all about like these gambling angles. And it's like, okay, I'm going to roll the dice here. And it may overshoot my mark, but I could also hit it big. Right? That's the nature of a Jupiter-Pluto square. I do think from a more kind of global perspective, or in this case, a national perspective, that we are having dialogue about economy and assets. And I would assume here that, especially with the sun coming into a closer square with Jupiter, you're going to hear more about some of these exchanges on the digital currency front, being kind of on the ropes, right? You're going to hear more of that. You may hear more talk about the CBDC. We keep hearing that, we're spending. Look, there's no fucking way we're ever going to pay this debt back, right? There's just no way. For every dollar we get, it's $1 we have to pay back. Just do the math. And it's just not going to happen. Not with a government that spends money like a drunken sailor on shore leave. Venus, Venus in Capricorn. It's very calculating. Venus in Capricorn is it's not warm. It is not romantic, but I'll tell you what it is. Venus in Capricorn is enduring. It's one of those Venuses that if a person has it in their chart, they're capable of long-term commitment. Long-term commitment. And if you're in a relationship with somebody who has Venus in Capricorn, you better be ready to build with that person, because that's what they want. They want structure, order, and form, and they want the relationship to not just progress as a relationship, but to have the relationship manifest itself in the world in a way where it's kind of like building a legacy. Venus in Capricorn is the building the legacy aspect. Okay, well, we're going to get together. We're going to build a legacy. We're going to have kids. We're going to leave generational wealth, and this is what it's all about, right? We're going to do whatever it takes. We'll cut out coupons. I was in line the other day it was yesterday, I think, at HEB, and it was Monday at HEB, and this woman in front of me, she must have had fucking, I don't know, 20 coupons. 20 coupons. She's the coupon queen. Now, she had to buy a bunch of shitty food to get all the discounts. But I'm like, oh, well, how much did she save there? I always watch people in lines at supermarkets. You learn a lot. How much did she save there? She saved $10. Good for her. That's Venus in Capricorn. It's also Venus in Cancer. You get that in the opposition. They're both trying to do the same thing, right? Venus in Capricorn does that in order to build up, to get to another level, right? And so we have this Venus-Saturn sextile. So working together, partnerships, sharing a common goal, aspirational in the sense of what you want to do in the world is good. Now, Venus is still in that square with Neptune, but it's starting to move away. It's getting closer to the sextile with Saturn. So I'd lean more on Saturn and less on Neptune. But just in case, make sure all your I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And if you're doing any contracts, I would say make sure that another set of eyeballs gets on them. All right. I think that's it. I think we're good. All right. Let's talk about our True Hemp Science star of the day. You bring the banner up here. There's the old banner. Okay. So, of course, True Hemp Science is the only sponsor of the show, besides me, Robert Phoenix, and robertphoenix.com. By the way, please hit the like button. It really helps here. I'm slowly creeping up on 14,000 subscribers. I've been at 13.9 for, I don't know, what, the last 3 years? It feels like that. So subscribe if you haven't, and hit the bell button. So, we do a lot of content here. And it always helps to know when I'm doing a show. Okay. True Hemp Science is one of the best places you can get CBD, bar none. You use it every day. And my buddy Chris uses only organically sourced hemp for all of his products. And whatever it is, whether it's pet sounds for your pets, the moon gummies for your sleep. The moon dust gummies are not for your sleep. Moon dust gummies are for something else. But the sleep gummies and all the varieties, my mother takes some of his CBD. I take his CBD as well. And it's really just great stuff. It's a great business. And by supporting the business, you're really supporting Main Street. So all you got to do is type in 15MINS, 15MINS. When you check out, spend $100 or more, you get free product. You get some free goodies. $150 more, get you free shipping. And there's always a money back guarantee that lasts you 30 days. You don't like it, send it back in 30 days. You get your money back. It's some old school, good old school capitalism at its finest. All right, let's talk about our star of the day. The True Hemp Science star of the day is Klaus Nomi. Now, some of you may be asking yourself, who the fuck is this freak? And I've been gently asked that I go through the profiles of these people because some of the people I talk about are not very well known. And I would say Klaus Nomi is in that camp. So just to give you some background, Klaus Nomi was born on January 24th, 1944. So he's born just coming out of World War II. He's growing up in post-war Germany, which I can guarantee you was not an easy place to grow up. The specter of the war, the collective shame, and there was, I'd have to say that the Germans have done remarkably well in the face of two wars that were that brought crushing demoralization. Their government became much more liberal and much more socialist as time has gone on, and it still is. But growing up in post-war Germany must have been a very difficult emotional experience in a lot of ways. So when we look at his chart, there's no water. There's no water there. We'll get into that. Klaus Nomi was a performance artist, and he became popular fairly quickly. His popularity, like he really comes onto the scene maybe around 1977, maybe 77, 78. So he's in his early 30s. And he has this weird operatic voice. He sings in these like really high falsetto pitches. And he has this persona where he looks like this odd kind of robotic, marionette. And when he would perform live, and he kind of moved into the kind of punk, art rock, new wave genre. Like that's where he found acceptance. And when he would perform, this is what he looked like. And he was very thin, and he had all these very robotic movements, right? He was very unusual. And I wouldn't call what he did rock and roll, but in sort of the aftermath of the Sex Pistols and punk rock and DIY, it was like, hey, it's a big party, just jump in the pool. Everybody is, there's room here for everybody. And there was a movie called Erg, A Music War, that was produced by the Copeland brothers. And it was a kind of a documentary of mostly IRS. That was the label that Miles Copeland ran, and his brother Ian Copeland ran, IRS Records. So they had their own artists, and then there were other artists that would play with them on tour. So there were all these artists that were part of all these tours that were related to the IRS label. And so they filmed them all. And Klaus Nomi was one of them, and he kind of stands out. Like he just, how could he not stand out? So what makes his chart noteworthy or talk worthy? Well, let's look at Uranus, right? He's got Uranus in Gemini. He's like Trump, right? Trump has Uranus in Gemini. He's got Uranus in Gemini, and he has Mars in Gemini, and he's got a Gemini midheaven. And you can just see like the duality and the polarity. He plays with a lot of black and white imagery. This kind of futuristic formal getup. And he's very robotic. He feels utterly synthetic in a lot of ways. And I think Uranus is a big part of this. He's and like his male expression, which is Mars, and it's in Gemini, which is split, right? And he happens to also be gay. He dies of AIDS, and he's the age of 39. So not long after he kind of, makes his mark in sort of the art rock new wave world, he's cycling out of here. But you can just see kind of the high strange with Uranus and Mars here, and then he's got Sun in Aquarius. So his Sun is trining Mars, Uranus, and he's got this Neptune trine with it. So it's all artistic. It's all performance art, right? And it's like, who is Klaus Nomi? Is he this guy? Or is he the guy without the pancake and the weird haircut? It's like who, whoever Klaus Nomi was, beyond the pancake, he was a creative dude. He was very, very highly creative. And he's got that Moon-Pluto conjunction, very intense, in the 11th house. And he led a band. I mean, I'm not sure, it was Dizzy Gillespie or Duke Ellington, but he led a band. That's teamwork, right? But there was also the kind of tragedy here with Sun-Pluto, right? The Sun-Pluto opposition, and really dying at an early age. And I would assume that Klaus Nomi had some rather, how would I say this, eccentric habits. I would say that whatever kind of sex play or role play he had was highly unusual. And even though it's just fascinating, right? Like you have this guy who is about as white as you can get, about as robotic as you can get, about as stiff as you can get. And I'll bet you away from that, right, that he had this whole other life going on, kind of like how Freddie Mercury had this whole other life going on. And that's what I see in his chart, that there was a kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I wouldn't say necessarily hedonistic, although that could enter into it for sure. But more of like a kink or a fetish, like this is a guy that would probably go to bondage clubs, in his spare time. This is a guy that would, go to dungeons, right? Like there's that very extreme element, and sets him up with a rather risky and precarious lifestyle. And even Chiron on the ascendant in Virgo. Chiron on the ascendant is not an easy task in this lifetime. You always feel like a fucking alien. And that's what he felt like. He totally felt like an alien. But he was ambitious. He had Saturn in the 10th house. And so, I don't know what his youth was like growing up in Immenstadt, Germany, or his relationship with his parents. I could speculate. But I would assume that where he started out and where he wound up becoming this kind of cult figure, in this kind of new emerging musical scene was, kind of a journey for him, right? Like this is not your typical, Elvis, Buddy Holly Crickets, kind of performer. This guy is, kind of more like, I don't know, David Bowie, kind of like a German mime robotic version of David Bowie from Heroes, where Bowie's doing all the mime shit. It is Jupiter in the 12th house, which is interesting as well. So he had a lot of creative potential. Maybe in some ways too much. Venus Neptune square, we just talked about the Venus Neptune square. That to me, this is, if you just look at his home life with Venus there, that there's some kind of betrayal in his home life. Maybe even feeling like, he didn't belong. Like, to me, Venus and Sagittarius, like, I don't belong because I adopted. Help me go find my real family. And with the Venus Neptune square, as his life evolves, I think it becomes harder to harder and harder to trust people. So I think he probably went against his better judgment in a number of situations in his life, especially with that Mercury Neptune square. And you get into this area, and it can lead to potentially self-destruction, especially in a relationship. Like, he didn't go around asking his partner, "Hey, have you had an AIDS test lately?" Right? Like that didn't happen, more than likely. So he's a very interesting character. He's otherworldly. He's got some Earth, not a whole lot, right? He's got the ascendant. He's got Chiron. What else? He's got the moon and Mercury. So he has some connection to Earth. He's got some fire in his chart, but it's kind of occulted. 12th house, 4th house. But really what he has in spades is air. And he's got the grand air trine. And he's about as airy as you can get, barely attached to the surface of the Earth. There you go. There's your True Hemp Science star of the day, Klaus Nomi. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm going to be over on the 15 Minutes of Flame. Yeah, we'll be breaking down some more stuff. So please join me. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter, AstroPhoenix9. I put a lot of links up there. I put a lot of just, comments, information. And if there's a show, I usually put the link to the show over there. So there you go. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to accept what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You are you. Stay blessed. Bye for now.